Hey everyone, welcome to another session of A Day in the Life of a BA. My name is James and I'm the president of the IIBA Ireland chapter, and I'll be your host today. About this series that we're running, A Day in the Life of a BA. So at IIBA Ireland, our mission is to support professionals by sharing knowledge, common terminology, practical insights into the work that us business analysts do across different industries. And that's really the whole point of this series, to give you a chance to hear directly from BA professionals about their typical day. So like the processes they use, the tools and techniques they use, the tasks that they do, or even like the challenges and successes that they have encountered while working in this particular industry. And each month we're inviting a different BA professional to share their personal journey, which they can highlight their like approaches they take, the technologies they rely on, and even real world examples from their own work. So whether you're considering a career in business analysis, already working alongside another BA, or simply looking to deepen your understanding of the role, today's session is designed to give you that clarity, the confidence, and a shared language for working effectively with business analysts. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Alicia, who works as a BA in the entertainment sector. Alicia will be walking us through her own day in the life and sharing practical insights from her own experience. Throughout the session, please feel free to turn on your camera if you like, so that you can interact with other attendees, or if you want to interact in the chat, please feel free to do so. And we will have a section at the end of the presentation where you can ask your questions. In the meantime, if you want to submit them through the Q&A tab or into the chat, we can use that section at the end to go through them. So without further ado, it's over to you, Alicia.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this evening, or wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to turn off my camera. I am noticing some latency, so I want to make sure that I cover everything and you don't miss anything. So thank you again. As stated before, my name is Alicia Funderburk. I am located here in the US, and my presentation will take you through the journey of a BA in entertainment. I will start off by saying it is not traditional, but it is very exciting, and I hope this helps. So where creativity meets strategy. So this is me. All right. One important thing I want to note, this presentation reflects my personal views and experiences and does not represent the positions or opinions of my current or former employers. The examples and insights shared in this session are drawn from my own personal experiences working in the entertainment industry and are intended for educational purposes only. Experiences and outcomes in the industry can and do vary. I have worked for some pretty large names in the industry, so I do want to make that clear that anything presented in this session is from my own personal experience and not a reflection of, or positions rather, of my current or former employers, just for legal purposes here. So all that boring stuff out of the way. This is me again. I am a published author, published creative professional, and a published business analysis professional. I have 17 plus years of experience in entertainment and technology, serving in a variety of different roles. From business owner, which I currently am, a leader, which I also am, a photographer, which I still am. I've served coordination roles, project manager, and business analyst roles, specifically business systems analyst, you name it. I've probably touched it at least once. I have been in the sectors of live music events, television, hospitality, food and beverage, medical devices, automotive manufacturing, professional sports, news and editorial, and agriculture farming. So that's an interesting twist there. Very fun. And all of this is connected. I was also the 40 under 40 recipient in 2014 in Western North Carolina in the US. I love education, and it's not a secret. I'm going to say this again. I love education, and I am a lifelong learner. I have completed both bachelor's and master's degrees, as well as several other postgraduate degree programs. I am not going to bore you by reading this list. While this list may also look obnoxious, everything that I have done and will continue to do is very specific. It serves a purpose, and I have built my educational foundation to scale with the market and my own personal interests. My education background covers in detail arts, technology, engineering, instructional and learning experience design, business, and leadership. So with my industry experience and solid educational background, I try to sit at the intersection of creativity, technology, and business strategy. I consider myself one of those T-shaped personas for my project managers that are tuning in. I offer both industry experience from globally recognized businesses and best practices from the academic space. All right, so while the other slides may have come off as if I have no social life or personal life or work-life balance, I actually do have a very healthy work-life balance. So some small interesting facts is I absolutely love volunteering at my core. That is, I do it in my spare time. Some people don't, but it is something that I hold near and dear to my heart, and I've dedicated my life to making sure that I'm an avid volunteer in serving my community. That is something that is extremely important to me. I am also a power lifter. That is, I don't know how I got into it, but it's one of the things that I have to do or I'll go crazy. I'm also a gardener. I am from the mountains of Western North Carolina, and nature is also something that is near and dear to my heart. I come from a long line of gardeners, farmers, and so gardening is something that I do as well in leisure year round. And I have some photos of some of the things that I've grown in my garden, as well as some powerlifting photos. I am also an avid axe and knife thrower. I do this competitively. I was also in the IATF league if you're interested in all of that fun stuff. So yeah, that's another small fun fact. And I've already kind of touched on this outdoor activities. I love hiking and outdoor activities. So that's a little bit about me. I'm more than just business, but I do have a social life as well. All right. So here's what we're going to cover in this session. I'm going to take you through a journey. I'll try to tell you a story. And hopefully it helps you in your journeys and your personal stories as you continue to move through your careers. So I'm going to touch on the entertainment landscape. It's not a one size fits all. When we think entertainment, we think about, one or two things in particular, but entertainment is actually quite broad. So I will touch on entertainment. I will go over where business analysis fits within the entertainment industry and some recommended skills and required skills to have if you would like to be successful in the entertainment space. Then I'll take you on a day in life, so behind the scenes of a business analyst in entertainment. We'll go over some challenges, some ethical considerations if you are interested in moving into this space, or if you are in this space currently, some things to keep in mind as you continue moving forward with your careers in entertainment. How branding and storytelling directly impact business outcomes. So while we can think entertainment, fun, glitz and glam, photos, art, there is a real business side to the entertainment space. So I will be touching heavily on branding and storytelling. I made a miscue on this, but I will again talk about challenges and ethical considerations. Then we'll go into key takeaways, and I'll have my closing and Q&A here at the end. I am not perfect, by the way, so yes, sorry for that miscue there. All right. As I continue to move through this, if you have any questions, please feel free to place them in the chat, and I'll try to weave them in if I can. Otherwise, we will have that dedicated Q&A session at the end of this. Right. So what is the entertainment industry? So again, I mentioned it's not a one size fits all. It is an ecosystem. So at its core, entertainment is the art of capturing and holding human attention through storytelling. So every form of entertainment, whether it's film, music, sports, live events, or digital content, it's really just a vehicle for the same thing, a story that makes someone feel something. So, for example, let's look at film and entertainment, or film and television. It's essentially narrative storytelling through a moving image. We're looking at a story when we watch film and TV. Music and live performance. Music and live performance is emotional storytelling through sound and experience. So when you listen to music, it takes you on a journey. You feel something when you listen to music. Sports. It's one of my favorite things. Sports competitive. It's competitive storytelling with unpredictable outcomes. When you watch a game, whether it's football or soccer or American football or pickleball, all of these different sports. It is competitive storytelling. You're watching these athletes tell a story, and you don't know what the outcome is going to be. Digital and social media. So that's micro storytelling in real time. So we have our social media influencers, e-commerce brands, things like that is micro storytelling in real time. And we have advertising and branding. This is persuasive storytelling that drives behavior, essentially. There are some brands that set the standard for the rest of the world. And I have had the honor and privilege to work for some of those brands, and they do it well. They set the standard, and it is persuasive, and they tell a story very well. Food and beverage. That's experimental storytelling through product design and culture. So when we look at food and beverage, we have, your typical food and beverage. We have the actual meal. There's a story behind that. How did that come into being? These senses that it evokes. It's food and beverage is storytelling. Then you've got your product labels. You have a culture behind food. It's such a deep space when it comes to the experimental storytelling in the food and beverage space. And then we have photography and visual content, and that's storytelling through a single frozen moment. That's the space that I actually started in, and as you can see on the slide here, I do have one of the images that I have captured when I covered American Idol, which was a privilege as well, very exciting opportunity. So a single moment in time. So personally, I have worked in digital media and broadcast, so TV, TV and movies, professional sports, film and television. I've kind of touched on that already, and then live events and concerts. So when we take a step back and look at this holistically, in a way, every industry is in the entertainment business, whether or not they know it, because every brand is competing for the same finite resource, and that is human attention. So where on earth does business analysis fit within entertainment? So business analysis is deeply embedded in the entertainment industry. It operates, however, behind the scenes and across multiple functions. So, for example, in studios and production, you have analysts that evaluate certain scripts, acquisitions, they greenlight different decisions, production budgets, the projected return on investment for films and shows, and they model revenue streams across the theatrical, streaming, licensing, and merchandising spaces. Streaming platforms. This is a huge one. So when I speak about streaming platforms, I'm talking about your companies like Netflix. This is one of the heaviest users of business analysis today. We are talking about content performance metrics. How many subscribers do you have? What's the churn look like? The content investment decisions, the licensing negotiations, and all of that requires rigorous analysis. Then you have your talent agencies. Those are agencies where, the analysts that work for those agencies, they assess the detail structures, the deal structures, the contract terms, the market positioning of the talent, and the revenue diversification strategies for their clients. A lot of analysis takes place in that space. The music industry. This is one that I have worked heavily in, and one of my absolute favorites. Music is how I live. Essentially, I don't go a day without listening to music, and there's a lot of analysis that takes place in this space as well. So labels and distributors, they use business analysis for true profitability. So the streaming, loyalty, and optimization. So you think about things like Spotify or Apple Music, your music streaming platforms. There are royalties associated with streaming music on those platforms. You've got licensing, the catalog acquisitions, things like that. it's what makes the difference in between when artists like James Blake or Black Coffee, Francis Mercier or Sam Smith, whether or not they tour or not in the U.S. versus staying in Europe. It's one of those things where you have to analyze the market to decide, is it worth your time and money and investment in touring to some of those places. Live events and venues, so ticket pricing strategies, analysts look into things like that, venue capacity optimization, sponsorship opportunities, and production cost management. Those are all business analysis functions. And then we have gaming and interactive entertainment, so the monetization modeling. And then you have like the player lifetime value, so it makes a difference in between when a player gets traded from one team to the other. And then you have, and that's in live sports. And then you have the in-app purchases. So if you are working on things like from EA Sports examples, they look at how many times things are downloaded, etc. Those are just a few examples. Again, any company or brand that I have mentioned, I do not work for them. In this, they were just purely examples in how this stuff works. So, business analysts in entertainment. So, one thing I will note, many professionals perform business analysis duties under completely different job titles. And so, one of the things that I have noticed is I didn't have a clue what a business analyst was until I entered into the IT space. However, when you look at what the core of what a business analyst does, you do it all the time, depending on your role within the entertainment industry. So depending on the entertainment industry, depending on the industry you work in, you may or may not see the title of a business analyst. So entertainment, depending on the sector, you will see things like, or titles like producers, managers, photographers, videographers, agents, you got PR representatives, things like that. Those are all roles that use business analysis and project management on a daily basis. However, they do not have those formal titles of business analysts or business systems analysts or project managers. You have it. But however, they do perform the business analysis or project management function every day. So creative professionals who understand the business side of their craft, like pricing, contracts, what is return on investment, what is marketing positioning or market positioning, they are far more successful and sustainable long term. So I myself, my medium, I'm an artist at heart. I started off as an artist, and then I figured out, oh, there's a business behind photography. And so I made it a profession. And so a photographer who can walk into a meeting and speak the business value of their work is actually performing business analysis, whether or not their business card says it or not. And it works the same way for music artists, performers, and athletes. You hear oftentimes, musicians, they're like one-hit wonders, and then they're just flat out broke the next time you turn around. It's because they didn't understand the business side of their art form. So it is important to understand and do that business analysis of the field that you are in before you get too deep in it. Same thing with athletes, mismanagement of contracts, etc. So taking it outside of the world of entertainment for a second, if you're a BA that's supporting an engineering organization, which I have also done, that can speak the engineering language and understand the engineering space, you'll be a little bit more successful in earning the trust of the business when it comes to building relationships and performing that stakeholder engagement piece and conducting that stakeholder analysis piece, because business will trust you. Your stakeholders will trust you. So that is something to keep in mind. That is a skill that I would highly recommend is your domain knowledge. So challenges in business analysis and entertainment. So I'm going to switch back and forth in between saying business analyst, because even though you might be a photographer, you're still a business analyst at the end of the day. So I'm going to switch back and forth throughout this presentation with saying business analysis, performing business analysis, and referring to photographers and business analysts, but I'm pretty much saying the same thing. So anyways, entertainment is one of the most complex domains for business analysis because it sits at the intersection of art, emotion, technology, and sales. So how does this work? Like quantifying the unquantifiable. Like how do you measure the value of a feeling? And translating, creative output into business metrics. That's one of the hardest problems you see in entertainment. A song, a film, a beer label. How successful is that going to be? That's still a part of entertainment. How do you predict what will resonate before it's released? A person playing the role of a business analyst in this space must bridge the gap between gut instinct and data. And that's where the analysis piece comes in. Stakeholder complexity is a big one. In the entertainment space, projects evolve and involve usually diverse cast of stakeholders. So you've got your creatives, then you have your executives, and oftentimes they speak very different languages. You've got your on-air talent, so like your news anchors, things like that. You've got your athletes, legal, marketing, distribution, and then you've got your audience or your subscribers, your customers, depending on what role or what space you're in within the entertainment industry. Each stakeholder speaks a different language and they have different success metrics. So it is very difficult and challenging to figure out and define what success looks like. And so business analysts must translate between all of them without losing the creative vision or the business objective. Scope creep. That's a big one. As a creative myself, it is forever evolving. And that's part of the beauty of creativity and the creative space. It's always evolving. And it's when one idea becomes something completely different by the end of the project. So it's really challenging to manage the scope creep in this space. You have to keep in mind your budget. You have to manage your scope. You have to manage your budget. You have to manage timelines because this is a space that changes rapidly and it requires exceptional adaptability. You have to be okay with change or you will not survive in this space. So for many, project managers out there who speak the project or anyone who speaks the project management language, this is one of those things where hybrid and adaptive methodologies will be essential. So you have to be able to roll with the punches, essentially. Keep up. Speed versus quality. So entertainment moves at the speed of culture. A moment missed is a moment lost. And so live events, social media, real-time content demand instantly change a decision. And so a business analyst must be able to gather the requirements, analyze the data, and make recommendations in real time. And they have to do it fast because just like you work for one brand, there's also someone else doing the same thing. So you have to be able to move at a quick pace in this rapidly changing space. And so another challenge is going to be the data gaps and audience unpredictability. So audiences are emotional. They're very unpredictable. Data can inform, but it can never fully predict what's going to happen. So historical data is limited. And so you really have to just watch. And so, for example, think about the Stanley Cup, for example. Like at least in the US, it was like an overnight sensation, even though Stanley Cup had been around forever. Just overnight, it became, oh my gosh, I must have the Stanley Cup. And it's like they were so ridiculously expensive when historically they were not. And then just like overnight, it was no longer a thing to have. You can find them at a severely discounted rate now. So it's like, and I don't know what caused it. I don't know if anybody knows what caused it, but it's another example of how unpredictable trends and fads are when it comes to things in this space. So a BA must have the ability to trust the data and know how to trust their creative instinct and be able to guide the business to be able to make better decisions. Protecting brand integrity under pressure. So I have mentioned several times, this is a very fast-paced and competitive environment. And so you have to be able to work at a fast pace without compromising integrity of the brand. So temptation to move quickly can compromise things. And so the BA plays a critical role in ensuring that every deliverable aligns with the brand's value and identity. One off-brand moment can undo years of brand building, and it is hard to build a brand. It takes time to build a brand and only a second to ruin it. Having worked for some very major entertainment corporations who I argue several times set the standard in the world today for brand recognition, feelings you get when you interact with their brands. And it's something serious. Brand and staying on brand is taken very seriously, even down to when you greet each other. The tone of voice that you use when you hang up the phone, the templates that you use when you're creating internal presentations, even if the public never sees it. Brand is everything, and it is your credibility. It is how you are recognized, and it's how you remembered, and it's how you build trust and returning customers and or fans. And so as a business analyst, your personal brand as an analyst is equally important. And I'll touch on that a little bit later in the presentation. But branding is everything. Another challenge is going to be multi-platform complexity. So in the today's digital age, content has to perform well across different platforms. And so gathering requirements becomes essentially more complex for a single campaign because it has to be adapted for platforms like Instagram. You've got something different you have to meet for TikTok, and you've got YouTube over here. Then you've got print, you have live events, and then you have merchandise. And so it is important to, really pay attention to how you gather requirements and the level of detail. Business analysts must understand the technical requirements of each platform without losing sight, again, of the overarching brand and the story that we're trying to tell. Another big thing is budget constraints and creative ambition. As a creative, you can just keep going. Yes, I'm very guilty of doing that, but you also have to understand it costs money. And so another hard reality is entertainment budgets are tight. It is really tight. And so the business analysts must find ways to maximize creative impact while managing costs responsibly. Measuring long-term brand value versus short-term return on investment. So a piece of content may not drive immediate revenue, but it builds long-term brand equity. It's one of those things that, labor pains are the baby, right? So convincing stakeholders to invest in the brand, building over short-term sales is a constant challenge. The BA must take the case for both simultaneously, and that is challenging. Legal rights and risk management. Entertainment is heavily governed by intellectual property, licensing, and rights. Sorry, I'm hungry. It's lunchtime here. Rights agreements. And so you might not think of it to start with, but there's a lot of legal that's involved with the creative space, and it is a challenge. And I'm sure if you've noticed at the very beginning of this, I started out with my disclaimer about statements that will be made in this forum. It's very legal. It may not appear like it, but it's heavy. And that also goes back to brand. I do want to address the elephant in the room. We cannot ignore it. We are in the digital age, and AI is here. It is here to stay. And it is one of those things where we have to embrace it, whether you're creative, whether you are a technology professional, a business analyst, a scrum master, a product owner, it will be here, and we have to learn how to work with it. However, everything that I mentioned here in terms of challenges, you have to keep in mind how AI plays a role. And that goes back to protecting the brand, making sure when you do use these platforms or AI tools, you are reading the legal pieces behind those platforms. So do you retain the rights? What type of information, are you putting in these systems to be able to generate content? Once the content is generated, do you own those rights, or does the company that you use or the platform that you use, do they own it now? So you have to keep those things in mind as you continue moving forward in the world today with AI. So that's one thing I do want to call out heavy there. So the good stuff behind the scenes. In my case, in entertainment, I've mentioned it several times. I am a creative. My medium is photography. Medium is just in the art world, what type of art do you produce? My medium is photography. Some people like to draw, some people are into pottery, things like that, but my medium is digital arts and photography. And so I consider myself an artist first. However, again, I've mentioned it several times, there is a business side to almost everything in the art space. So in this presentation, I've shown you all of, some of my commercial work. But if you haven't noticed, I haven't included any of my artistic sort of photos at all, or any abstract digital art. And that was by intention. It's art. It's very different. But I did want to highlight the commercial side, because this is where you're really going to see the business analyst piece. As a photographer in an extremely competitive space, you have to have a deep understanding of business, law, creative, and whatever your subject matter is. Knowledge of marketing and branding, sales, product life cycles, everything ties together and is extremely important in driving whether you're successful or not. So, for example, as a photographer, using business analysis skills, you have to have knowledge of pricing. How does it work? You have to understand how to analyze the market, understand market rates, how cost structures work, profit margins. You have to set a competitive rate that's also profitable. And you have to have a deep understanding of sales and marketing. That is critical to success. Whether you're a photographer, whether you are a business analyst working in IT, which I have also done, it is important to understand how the market works. It is all tied together, and I'll tie it together to you for you if I haven't already done so. Continuing to move forward here. So contract negotiation, being able to evaluate licensing terms, usage rights, and delivering scopes. That is a critical element as well. It's something that you have to keep in mind. Return on investment, having those conversations, whether or not helping a label or a studio understand the business value of a photo campaign. Budget management, tracking expenses on a shoot against renting things. Vendor equipment analysis. This is a big thing. Comparing costs of owning versus renting gear. So for example, do I really need that beauty dish that just came out, or 2 soft boxes with grids? Or do I really need to upgrade my Canon 1DX to the Mark III for this project? I don't know. It's one of those things that you have to do is perform that analysis. And portfolio strategy. So deciding what your niche will be. I have mentioned it several times. What's going to produce the best results. So concerts, headshots, press kits, everybody's a photographer these days, and the market is oversaturated with photographers. So you have to understand what your lane is. You have to figure out what you're really good at. So someone claiming to be a professional using a cell phone with no knowledge no knowledge of design principles or color theory, or the science behind the craft. It may work for some clients, but it doesn't work for everyone. So So it is important to understand your niche and come up with a sustainable business model. It's also going to be very important to keep up with the latest advancements in technology so that you can keep up with the demands of your clients and to remain competitive in the market, especially with AI. I've already mentioned that a couple times about the use of AI in the creative space. Know the laws, the licensing agreements, things like that, and be able to adapt, because I'm not gonna lie, the content and things that you can create with AI as a creative is mind blowing, and it is something to embrace. But you do have to set yourself aside from the masses. So day in the life, going back to myself here in this example. The example that I have here is from Rolling Stone magazine. This particular piece, I had the privilege of working with music legend Artemis Pyle from Leonard Skinner. First, let me say what an honor. Super nice guy. If you know anything about music, you know how special and rare this opportunity was. And of course, this publication is Rolling Stone, and is one of my favorite publications. Always has been, always will be. And it's a lot. It has a lot of music content. It's not an easy publication to be published in. It's been around for a very long time. And personally, when I got into the music entertainment space, in terms of photography, I set a personal goal for myself when I first started, that I wanted to be published in Rolling Stone. And when I mentioned this to others way back when, I was pretty much laughed at and told that it wasn't possible. And I'm sure if you haven't been paying attention, or if you have been paying attention in this presentation so far, you've probably noticed that I've been published in Rolling Stone more than once. I've at least 4 or 5 times, and anything is possible. So how did I do it? Business analysis. So when I set my goal, I knew I wasn't going. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. But I was up for the challenge. So, as any business analyst would, the first thing I did, came up with my business case and my goal. What am I trying to accomplish? I studied the market for a while, and I picked up on the trends. I studied Rolling Stone, the brand. I paid close attention to detail, making note of the style of the photos that had been published before. What was the color scheme? What type of artists do they follow? What stories are they writing about? What are readers interested in, etc.? And this process took me a while, but from there, I was able to create my list of requirements, came up with my business requirements. So, which in my case, it would be an example of the events that I need to gain access to, the moments that would resonate with their audience. How do I blend in with their brand? Then I came up with my functional and non-functional requirements for equipments for the shoot. Any documentation needs for agents for the venue, security requirements that I needed to meet in order to come close to certain artists, any legal documents that I needed to sign for NDAs, etc. And then I went into execution mode to capture the event. I paid close attention to quality, but I had to move fast to rush to upload, because just like I was there working on behalf of Getty Images, when you go to these events, you have at least 12 other agencies that are shooting the same event as well and looking for that shot. And so it is essential to move fast so that you get the higher, fast and with quality, so that you get the bigger return on investment. So, the direct impact on business outcomes. So, in this last piece, I'm going to talk through how branding and storytelling directly impact business outcomes, and how it applies to you individually as an analyst, and how it applies to performing business analysis for the businesses that you support. So as I walk through this last section, keep in mind how things actually apply to you as an individual and your personal brand as an analyst, and the work that you produce, whether it's creative in nature or you're a business analyst on an ERP implementation. Remember, there is a direct connection between storytelling and revenue. So as an analyst, you have a personal brand. So who is Alicia? What do I know about her as a BA? When I find out that she'll be working on my project as a BA, am I going to be happy or should I be concerned? Is she known for starting meetings on time? Is she known for having meaningful, accurate documentation that will help my team succeed? Is she a leader? Is she able to work with all stakeholders to get the information needed to move a project forward without disrupting the business? Is she easy to work with? Does she understand our business and does she listen? So when it comes to being a business, when it comes to working with your business, so that was your personal brand. When it comes to working with the business, do you know their brand? Are you able to capture their needs? Have you done your research and your analysis piece? Branding is everything. So brand differentiation. Difficult word to say for me because I'm hungry. What makes you stand out as a BA in your organization? When it comes to business, do you know what makes them successful? Are you as an analyst able to build a trust with your stakeholders? This is critical. And it is critical to the success that you have when you start your stakeholder engagement. The same mindset should be applied when you're thinking about the business that you support. Content as a sales tool. So as an analyst, your requirements are clear. Are your requirements clear? Are they smart? Are they easy to follow? This is like your portfolio as a business analyst with your organization. If someone views your requirements, would they be able to, would they want this type of quality on their other projects? Are you consistent? Are you able to build the relationships? And do your requirements and how you performed on the project in these utilizing the different business analysis techniques, did they get the data that you needed to be successful? Everything is tied together regardless of the industry. In IT, my personal portfolio, though they're my requirements. I created project briefs, all of those things and the outputs outlined in the bad box guide. That's my portfolio as an IT professional. In the creative space, I'm a photographer. I have my website. I look at the analytics. I look at the traffic. I have my contracts. I have my clients, and I look at the amount of completed sales that I have as a business owner. So I know that was a lot. So I'm going to try to summarize this. Entertainment is universal. Every industry is in the entertainment business. It's just a matter of how you look at things. It's your perspective. Every brand is competing for the same finite resource, and that's human attention. And the BA must understand that this has a significant advantage in any domain. Every creative decision is a business decision. Great content doesn't just look good, it drives awareness, it builds community, and it directly impacts revenue. The most effective BAs in entertainment are those who speak both the creative and business language and fluently. Data closes the loop between story and strategy. Branding is the promise that you have in the business. It makes storytelling is how you keep up your data. Are you engaging your audience? It is how you prove your worth. Analytics don't replace creative instinct; they just sharpen it. The most valuable professionals live at the intersection of both. The future truly just belongs to those professionals who can move seamlessly in between creativity, technology, strategy, and business analysis. It's turning execution into measurable outcomes. I know that was a lot. I might have been all over the place. I try myself not to ramble. It is a space that I am extremely excited about. So in closing, I want to thank all of you for your time and attention, and I hope you were able to take something from this that you can use to help you move forward in your respective domains. I do have an article published directly with IIBA on using sales and business analysis that we could probably share after the session that talks more in detail about some of the points that I mentioned in earlier slides that may be helpful. I talk more a little bit about the customer journey, personas, and sales techniques that I use in the BA space that I've kind of adopted from some of those very large brands that I've worked for, and they have worked like a charm. So please feel free to check out the IIBA website to look for those. I've also co-authored a book on business analysis entitled Business Analysis, Bridging the Gap Across Industries. That's available on Amazon and a few other places. There is a second volume of the book on the way, and I talk in detail more about business analysis in the entertainment space and live event production. So I really hope you enjoy this topic. I'm always happy to help and connect, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia. That was really, really interesting. But I think a key thing that stuck out for me that I really like that you mentioned, whether you're in entertainment or IT, we're not looking at the role or title, because there's people that perform like business analysis and it's based off the tasks that you do and the mindset. So you're still the same BA principles, like you're making sure that there's clear requirements, you have stakeholder engagement management, you're understanding the business needs, and you're consistently trying to deliver that quality of work. So yeah, I completely relate with that point. Really, really interesting to see the work that you've done, and congratulations on everything that you've achieved.
Thank you so much. All
Okay.
right. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the Q&A or the chat. But if anyone has any questions, guys, you're more than welcome to come off mute and ask Alicia directly.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much for this presentation and giving us an insight into the BA life in the entertainment industry. I just had a question for you. So, you spoke about looking at trends and the analytics and the traffic, and this is all data, right? So, how do
Yes.
you balance data with your creative intuition? So, I know that you are a very creative person, so that would sometimes overtake the data that you are looking at. So, how do you maintain that balance?
I love that question. Thank you so much for asking it. It is a hard task, but that's where you also have to keep in mind what is your goal. And that's also one of those things where I've had to try really hard to separate the business side of creativity, my personal creativity, between business. What is the work that I'm getting paid to do in this particular forum? So it's more so, how do I keep the balance? Is understanding the requirements and sticking to them. So if I know that I have to increase a particular campaign, I'm going to look at what resonates well. I'm going to look at the timing, like social media, for example. If you're creating content for a social media campaign, I'm going to look at before I start my campaign, I'm going to look at what other campaigns were successful. When did they post? What type of content are they posting? Who's the audience? And then I'll try to model it based off of that. So if I'm working for a particular brand, I'm going to look at what performed well historically. What have I seen recently? And then what am I trying to accomplish? And then try to model it that way in terms of the content that I produce and when I post it. And it's just a trial and error. Again, I mentioned it before, the market, your audiences, it's unpredictable. You don't know how humans are going to react to things. And so you could try your best to start with, and then you have to kind of tweak it. It's an iterative process. I hope that answers that question. If not, please let me know.
Yes, I think so. So you're trying to say that you kind of stick to the goal and look at the overall, what is the overall requirement, right?
Yes. And then I iterate from there.
Right, right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course. What specific job titles within the entertainment industry apply business analysis skills? A photographer, I'm living proof of that. Production managers, producers, entertainment managers, talent managers, videographers. That's all that I can come up with off the top of my head. I'm sure there are others, but those are the ones that I've directly interacted with or performed that job myself. Content creators. It's another one. Content managers, art directors, brand directors. They are all performing business analysis, as well as project management. Great question. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you build credibility quickly in rooms like with these experts without pretending to be the experts?
I also love that question. And that's knowing your audience. So do your homework before you get into that room. Being able to speak the language, it helps. So my own personal experience, it's no secret. I'm creative. I came from creative. It's still at my core. And when I made that transition into technology, it was difficult. It was one of the hardest things to do and be able to build that credibility. However, I'm a creative, but that doesn't mean I'm not technical too. And so when I made that transition, it was about speaking the language, being able to demonstrate through actions that I understand technology space. Same thing when I transitioned into engineering. I understand engineering. I may not be an engineer by trade. I'm not a PE, but I understand the engineering space. So I'm able to, if I'm able to speak the language, it helps build that credibility. If it's not speaking the language, it's what are you doing externally? Have you worked on some volunteering projects in that particular space? Have you taken a course? It's something to be able to relate. At the end of the day, we're humans, right? We have to relate. We have to communicate. Building that trust. Hopefully that answers the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. How do you gather data for your analysis? Okay, that's a great question. Depends on what we're talking about. So if I'm going to give you several different examples. So if I'm a photographer working independently, say for example, Getty Images, I'm going to look at after I finish the shoot, I've uploaded my images. Soon as it's available for consumption, I'm going to go look and see my sales on my dashboard. I'm going to see how many people, how many clicks. That's how I would do it for that particular thing. When it comes to social media, if I'm managing a campaign on social media, when it comes to creative content management, I'm going to look at the dashboard when it comes to posts. So how many people click on it? Similar sort of approach. I'm going to look at how many reposts, how many likes, and then I also do that market analysis. That is critical, is market analysis. How are other things doing? You benchmark. Just like you would in an IT project, you're going to benchmark with the industry before you start doing the things right in the IT space. I benchmark as a creative as well. I also do that same thing when I'm working in an IT capacity. Benchmarking is very helpful. So that is another way to gather data. Another thing, depending on what you're doing in the IT space, I love surveys. I love interviews. That's another way to gather data for analysis. If you're implementing an ERP system or replacing one, I'm going to ask the question, what works well with what you have, right? What doesn't work well? Sometimes, depending on who you're working with, you can get really deep into the weeds about the tool. So I try to take the tool out of it. Tell me about what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? What do you need to accomplish? What what are your pain points, and then kind of model it from there. That's how I'm gathering the data for my analysis to be able to provide you with a sustainable business solution at the end of the day. So if I'm building a platform for you, I want to gather information directly from the source, whether it's through surveys, interviews, social media, gathering the analytics based off of the amount of clicks, etc. Does that answer your question? I mean, there's several other ways to gather data, but great question. Any other questions?
I suppose a follow on for that question. So you'd have all this kind of data, but when data can be like incomplete or messy or like biased, but you still need to make some sort of decision by, let's say, the end of the day or a timeline. How do you manage that?
That's a very good question. And it would not be a decision that you would make on your own. As an analyst, if you are working in, that's why you have a team. You can be an analyst on your own, but at the end of the day, you do need a team. You have to communicate effectively. So that's one of those situations that things are not performing well, or you have incomplete data. You work with your team to figure out a good solution. So if I see something right away, I'm going to say, okay, this makes sense. I might want to do something this way based off of what the data is showing. Let me run it past my team. Let me make sure that this makes sense. Is this realistic, or am I just making things up? And then if it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, everybody agrees. If it's something that costs money, I'm going to put together a business case and say, hey, like based off of the data, things aren't going well. We came up with this collective idea. Run it past the stakeholders if you need additional funding to get that approval. That's just one example.
Yeah, thank you.
As an individual, my own business, if things are not performing well, I'm gonna try to pick up on trends. I'm gonna compare it based off of things that have done well. So like for social media campaigns, if I have a post that I've done for a company, if it's not performing well, if you've got like for products, for example, if I'm doing a social media campaign that is publicizing a spice or a beer or something like that, I'm going to look at, this is a good example. Did we make any sales based off of that? Like if we have a link in that post, how many people clicked into it? If they didn't, why? So if I have another post that did well, that had a link to purchase something, why did that do well? Was it the time of day? Was it the graphics? Was it the wording used? Because it's not just visual. You also have to think about that change management piece and what's in it for the customer and how you word things and are you something that I personally love is AdCar. You have to make sure, and that's in that change management space, are using AdCar in your post to get that engagement, building the awareness, and showing what the person gets out of it works wonders. So that's something that I've done is use the make sure that my wording is okay. Visuals are, it pulls you in. Is it telling a compelling story both visually and with the words that you use? It all works together. Am I using the right technology? And you see how all this stuff is coming together: the technology piece, the creative piece, the sales piece. It's all starting to make sense, right? So it's like when you look at someone like me, it's like this person is creative. Like I don't understand how it. No, trust me. There's a method to the madness. It all works together.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Yes. All right. Any other questions?
I mean, I have loads of questions that I could ask you if people don't want to speak up. No, maybe one final question then. So I suppose this is a lesson learned from your career working as a BA. Like, what's one kind of a mistake or decision that you've made that has kind of, I suppose, fundamentally changed how you practice business analysis today?
Ooh, that's a great question. I love this question too. I love all the questions. Um, Documentation. So when I first started, I was a bit green when it comes to trust and the business that you're working with, right? So and I'm talking specifically about the IT space, right? So as a creative, my own business, I'm like heavy documentation. Like this is like it's a business, it's my business, it's my brand. So I'm functioning very differently. When I'm working for a corporation and working in the IT space, when I first started, I was trusting the business on what they said and trust that they would deliver. So I was not heavy on documenting on paper what they said and what they agreed to when it comes to requirements. So that I may have requirements, but the acceptance criteria may or may not have been there. And I noticed that from not having that detailed acceptance criteria, going back to smart requirements, if those don't exist, it's really easy for people to wiggle and you waste time. And so I learned that very early on in one of my very first projects when I moved into the IT space. And I have never made that mistake again. If you've ever worked with me, I am known for heavy documentation. I am proud of it. I am an analyst. Um, through and through, and I enforce it. And so documentation, making sure things are clear, testable, actionable, measurable, those are all the things, right? And so it's one of those big adjustments I made early on in my transition into formal being a formal BA and the with the title of BA in the IT space is changing how I document the level of detail and how I write my requirements.
Cool. That's a great tip. Thanks so much for sharing. Okay, we've reached
Of course.
the top of the hour, but thanks so much again, Alicia, for taking the time to present. Really, really insightful presentation. And thanks for everyone for attending. Stay tuned on LinkedIn for our next day in the life of a BA. We will be having it next Tuesday. So if you want to join, details are already on our LinkedIn page. And enjoy your lunch, Alicia, and then enjoy your evening or morning, wherever you're joining from. So thanks again, guys, and have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Thank you. All right. Bye.
Bye.